Of course, it's an insurrection. That's exactly what it is, and we cannot tolerate it. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. After years of getting lectured by the left on political violence, the left precisely using the same tactics they once accused Republicans of using, only now it's pretty dramatic. And I'll tell you, in these ICE actions that are occurring in places like Chicago, it's really too much. It's getting dangerous, and I'll explain exactly where it's coming from in a moment. Now, you saw this, of course, what happened. ICE is actually conducting actions. They're arresting immigrants. They're at the ICE facility. And they're getting not just interfered, they're getting assaulted by individuals of the public. Crazy leftists, folks out there interfering in these actions, but really causing problems. The most recent one was on Saturday. There were 2 ramming incidents. There was a Brighton Park shooting scene. ICE agents responded to it. There was a individual described by the Department of Homeland Security as a domestic terrorist who rammed their vehicle and attempted to run ICE off the road. It's a miracle no one died. This was on the heels of an ICE patrol on Chicago's south side, where a vehicle was rammed and boxed in, an ICE vehicle, by 10 vehicles, 10 cars. This included a woman armed with a gun. She exited her car with the gun, which prompted agents to do the only reasonable thing, which was to open fire on her. They wounded her. She's lucky she's not dead. This woman, by the way, had previously been flagged in intelligence bulletins by ICE and the Department of Homeland Security for doxing agents online, basically following them home and then publishing their private details, address, phone number, etc. But this wasn't the beginning. On the 2nd, late last week, 2 separate incidents, one in Bensonville and Norwich. This is all in the Chicago area. There was, again, they try to ram use vehicles as weapons to run over ICE officers. There was a 20-year-old undocumented immigrant from Mexico, Miguel Escareno de Laura, entered the U.S., made his way up, and then rammed his vehicle into an ICE law enforcement car twice. Hours later, Widman Osberto Lopez Funes, a 18-year-old undocumented immigrant from Guatemala, also entered the U.S. through an inspection point, rammed his vehicle and ICE agents during a targeted enforcement operation. So the agents are out there trying to arrest bad guys, illegal immigrants, criminal aliens oftentimes, and they're having American citizens and illegals interfere with their actions. Now, I think it's an oversimplification to say that this is happening because the media is amping people up. Politicians are amping people up, and that they're all acting out of their, they're acting spontaneously and individually. I think this is a much more coordinated, deliberate, and targeted operation. The Democrats, the left, lost the election, and they lost it specifically on the subject of immigration. It was maybe the defining issue of the campaign. And here on the program, we spoke almost daily, if certainly weekly, about the extent to which ordinary Americans, even Hispanic Americans, supported Trump's promise to deport criminal aliens. It was hugely popular. So Trump didn't sneak this one in. It's not like he ran as a middle of the road candidate on immigration. Every time he spoke on the subject of immigration, said that we would have mass deportations, and people cheered it on, and they voted for him. They elected him. He became president, and now the losing side, having failed to persuade the public, having failed to secure the outcome of the election in their favor, now is staging, encouraging, organizing, funding, even an armed insurrection against a legitimate government. And the craziest thing to me is that these are the people running around calling themselves the protectors, so-called protectors of democracy. It's a load of crap, all of it. These people aren't supporting democracy in the least. They are pissed off that democracy selected, chose, and validated an opposing viewpoint. Because this is it. It's really as simple as one side, the left, wants open borders. One side, the left, wants mass migration. One side, the political left in this country, wants to erase a unique American identity. They would love nothing more than to flood this country and turn it into the third world. It's what they were doing the last 4 years. Joe Biden, asleep at the wheel, Otto Penn working in full force. It's exactly what the people behind the scenes who are running the presidency did, and they got quite far with it. Whether you take the 15 million, 25 million, 30 million number, there is no doubt that an unprecedented level of illegals got in. And they didn't just get in, they were given red carpet treatment. They had tens of thousands of dollars in benefits immediately rolled out. Some were fast-tracked into Social Security numbers. Many upon many receiving stay orders, given basically the ability to remain in the country and have their status sanctified through the Department of Homeland Security. Team Biden was not just welcoming people, not just tacitly allowing them, okay, wink, wink, nod, nod, you can come into the country. They weren't doing that. They were engaged in what I've called previously the largest human trafficking operation in the history of the world. Millions upon millions of people in what, 4 years? Unprecedented. And now it's Trump's fault. It's the funniest thing, although it's tragic, of course. It's Trump's fault. It's the Republicans' fault. It's ICE's fault that they have to go to the streets, door to door, and hunt down, yes, hunt down, target, find people who broke the law. And they broke the law, of course, with the full support of the former regime. Now, we Republicans, we conservatives can keep our heads held high. It's the other side that should hang their heads in shame. That won't happen because there's no self-realization over there. And besides, this is exactly the outcome that they wanted. They will use DHS's enforcement actions as a cudgel against Republicans. Only I don't think it's working. I think most Americans, whether they express it vocally, publicly, or not, are looking at this and going, yeah, it's kind of a messy, but I'm glad it's happening. The pendulum simply swung too far. Now it's readjusting. But it's important to pay careful attention to every single politician and pundit who continues to support this nonsense. Right? Because these are people that they claim, by the way, in strict enforcement of the law, saying, hey, you're here in the country illegally. You can't be here. Calling those people that are removing these folks, fascists, Nazis, radicals themselves, is absolute nonsense. But this is what they do. And this is what happens. And it's dangerous. It is an effort, honestly, to overturn the outcome of the election. That's why I call it an insurrection. Victor Davis Hanson, by the way, called it a neo-Confederate succession. Called them neo-Confederate secessionists, these Antifa types, anti-ICE people. And he's exactly right. All right, quick break. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT, the What's Right Show, brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam and Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
I am Nevada's favorite recovering Californian, Sam Mirejovsky here, behind the What's Right microphone, as per usual, Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. This is what I do. Reliably present and chewing through the issues of the day. There's a lot to cover today. I got this, the fact of this left-wing violence, it keeps adding up, and we're going to get to the guy that's running for attorney general in Virginia, because that's a huge part of the story. He basically came out of the weekend that he wrote a bunch of texts to somebody wishing for the violent deaths of not just his one-time political opponent, a Republican, elected Republican in Virginia, but also his wife and his kids. It's demented stuff. And what makes it newsworthy, what makes it, I think, actually worrisome for me, truly worrisome, is the number of Democrats, ordinary, you would think, mainstream Democrats out there that seem to be okay with this. I mean, that's the wild part. But look at the ICE raids. Look at that. They're, I would say, probably 80%, 90% of registered Democrats see the attacks on ICE officers by, well, they perceive it as concerned citizens. Of course, I see it more as these are paid, dangerous agitators, and some of them connected to Antifa, so domestic terrorists. But I think they see it and they're sympathetic to it broadly. Sam at what'srightshow.com. Sam at what'srightshow.com. That's my email. Best place to reach me with any questions, comments, or concerns. And of course, on X, at What's Right Sam, at What's Right Sam. So click to follow me there. Make sure you get all my updates, because I do tweet out, particularly when I'm not on the show and things are popping over the weekend. I'll get involved. I mentioned just before the break how my gut is going back to polling that occurred 2 years ago about the immigration issue, that there is a broad level of public support, even from non-traditional, voters, Republican voters, non-traditionally, people who weren't in the past GOP voters, that they are coming out in support for immigration enforcement, rolling back on all the insanity from the Biden years. So you got the polling. The polling's been consistent for a long time. There's some new polls right now coming out from all the people that got everything wrong. But if you look at the polls that are reliable, if you look at Rasmussen, the issue still remains strongly popular, even among Hispanic Americans. Now, I don't know if you remember this too, because we're talking a lot about Chicago. Last week seems to be some developments here where Trump is pressuring Governor Pritzker in Illinois to activate the National Guard. Pritzker's not going to do that. He's going to effect a showdown with Trump. I think this is where it's headed. And so this first deployment that's going to, be starting is going to be tested constitutionally. It's something that the Supreme Court already has on its docket. First day today of the Supreme Court term. So this is one of the cases. The California case actually is one that's going to be heard. And so the issue will be decided, even though there are 5 or 6 precedents, historic precedents, where presidents federalized the National Guard and did it against the wishes of a sitting governor. This was done primarily in the civil rights era. Okay. So I'm talking a lot about Chicago because Chicago and Illinois are in the news. And it's out there because if you recall, back during the campaign, there were a number of televised community meetings, particularly in the south side of Chicago, where angry residents, and that area is, I think it's 98% black, but these angry, traditionally Democrat people were chewing out their mayor. And do you know why? They were PO'd that the mayor at the government, Illinois, Biden, whoever, put all of these illegals into their neighborhood. And suddenly their community centers were overflowing. Their schools were overflowing. The kids couldn't get into daycare programs. They couldn't get into the hospital. Doctors, all these services that the community was used to having and enjoying were gone. They were flooded by so many bodies. And if you remember, Brandon Johnson, the mayor, just kind of stood there and was, we can't do anything about this. And I remember I played this for you when, this was all going on. And I thought, aha, they just went so far and they shoved all these people into these neighborhoods, and all of these lifelong generational Democrats are going, what the hell is this? You completely destroyed our world. But this is the way of elite globalists. They don't care. They open the borders. They've got their fantasy, their utopia that they're going to set up. It doesn't matter if the little guy, isn't happy. By the way, basically, Mayor Johnson, who now is polling, I think, at 13% or something terrible. Nobody likes him. But he's the guy today that came out saying there's going to be ICE-free zones. Well, he's not referring to, yes, he's going to basically block DHS and ICE agents from certain parts that are city-controlled property. And that's constitutionally questionable, too, because you've got the supremacy clause. The supremacy clause means that basically the federal government can operate without restriction by the states or local municipalities. They don't have to, they're not forced, they're not obligated to cooperate. So there's a question of whether a city, for example, can ban federal agents from their city-owned property. Maybe they can. But the same guy that shoved all of these dangerous illegals into these neighborhoods, who had an uprising from his own citizens, from his own fellow Democrats, from his own fellow black Democrats, now is saying, oh yeah, by the way, the ICE people, you're not free to operate here. We're going to do everything we can to prevent you from operating here. My big takeaway is the Democrats haven't learned a damn thing. I mean, it's like the election happened, and just like in 2016, just like with Hillary Clinton, when they thought that I'm a lot of rank and file Republicans or Democrats, and even some elected Democrats genuinely thought that it was Vladimir Putin sending, some sort of mind waves into the U.S. and that it was Trump's victory they couldn't explain it in any other way than it had been a manipulated outcome. That's where the original, election denialism came from. And now flash forward 8 years later, and we're here in the first months of Trump's second term, and 2024 still hasn't given anybody any on the Democrats side. They haven't stopped to think, maybe, just maybe, our open border policy isn't popular. So I'll take you through all of this here today. We'll get to it all. And of course, We'll get to. We got to. I'll read these text messages to you guys. This is so disturbing. A guy running for attorney general in Virginia. Awful. Sam Mirejovsky back after this. Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here, making radio great again on the What's Right Media Network. Yes, friends, happy Monday. Incidentally, mentioned last week how the Obama library, the presidential library, is just looking heinous, looking awful. You know, I'm a traditionalist like Trump when it comes to architecture. I don't mind modern. Trump's not a modern guy, but I think, generally speaking, some more traditional neoclassical buildings are the right way to go. So the Obama library, that's this brutalist, ugly thing growing in Chicago, probably the windows are really small, Robbie. I'm joking. I think it's because Obama knows he's got to make the thing bulletproof. Well, he did. I mean, where it's at, I mean, there's some crime, so perhaps that's the point of it. Anyway, Biden is having trouble raising money for his presidential library. By the way, do you guys know how this works? The whole presidential library thing. It's kind of a little bit of a scam. A president leaves office. He has some remaining campaign funds. Can typically convert those into funds to build a presidential library, but it becomes a tax-free money laundering operation for a former president to remain viable and have an income for himself, for family members, and other top aides, people he wants to keep in his orbit. So they go around and they start fundraising for this. Now, it's harder to fundraise as a former president, right? Because you no longer have anything you can give to people, but you still have some prestige and power that comes with being a former president. That power, that prestige, Biden doesn't have any of that. So the Daily Mail reported last week, and this is great, they reported that some donors told Biden when he went to them and said, "Oh, pretty please, I would like some money to build a presidential library." And they told him, "Hell no, you'll be lucky to get a food truck." So look, it's the Daily Mail. They're the only ones reporting it. I want to believe it's true. That's where I'm at on it. I want to believe it's 100% true that that's exactly what occurred. The reason why I think it's true, I have to be careful and circumspect here to protect my sources. But folks, I'm friends with Democrats. Believe it or not, I know a few. And in particular, I know a couple of well-heeled big donors. These are people who cut per cycle, per general election cycle, they cut upwards of $1 million each out of their own pockets to a presidential campaign. And they both gave money. As people know each other, but they're separate from each other. They both gave money to Biden in 2020. And they both are incensed that Biden ran again. And I know I shared this with you in the lead up to the to election day, and kind of reading all the tea leaves and explaining why things weren't going particularly smoothly for Biden, and then explaining a little bit the dropout, him leaving the race. But all this to mean, I know those two guys are not alone. I just have it confirmed from them that they literally told Biden to go pound sand when he said, "Oh, I'm gonna run again." They're like, "Hell no, you aren't. Get the F out of the race. Disappear. Kamala, whoever, anybody, just not you. You are, dead man walking." And they were very blunt with him. And he disregarded all of it because he was under the spell of Hunter Biden's crack pipe. Well, kind of by extension, right? Hunter Biden had the crack pipe, and then Hunter Biden was pressuring his dad, among others, to remain in the race so the perks for the family would continue to flow. So I believe that the Biden donors are going, for what? You're lucky you got a term in office. You're lucky that you're lucky to be lucky, man. Like, you go screw off. He doesn't have a lot of allies left after the spectacle. Well, that was his presence. But the big sin, the cardinal sin for Democrats was that he ran again. Because remember, nobody was enthused about Biden in 2020. No one. Biden was in March of, make sure I get my dates right, March of 2020. Right. In the midst of the primaries, early primaries, right? February, let's say. Biden was not good. He was nowhere. They rallied around him. He made his promise to Clyburn that he was going to pick a woman of color vice president. That's what I'm going to do. So it was basically between Kamala, I guess in the world of Democrats. We have some great, strong women of color on the Republican side, but on the Democrat side, it was Kamala Harris, and then it was a current mayor in LA. The Cuban affiliated communist apparatchik. It's like choosing between, Tweedledum, Tweedledee. Anyway, Biden did that last minute. Everybody rallied around him because they were like, anybody to defeat Trump. And this is the problem. This is the fundamental problem. Even when you look at the ICE situation, when you look at what is going on right now with this inability, this massive inability to not disavow Jay Jones, guy running for office for Attorney General in Virginia, big race, important race. Jay Jones writing a bunch of texts to a colleague, to a friend, about wishing that his political opponent's former rival's kids, Republicans' kids, were get murdered, violently shot. And just horrible stuff. They're not disavowing that everything is so tribal for them. It's all about getting Trump. The opposition to Trump, it's reflexive. And this is where Democrats got themselves into trouble. Going back, I'm not going to say Hillary Clinton, because that was a different deal. That was the Democratic Party anointing Hillary and giving the shaft to Bernie. That was intended always to be a power grab for the old guard inside the Democratic Party. But starting in the run up to 2020, I mean, they were so determined to get Trump, and they were determined to get him by settling for Joe Biden. Trust me, that was a settling. And then to engage in all sorts of legally dubious at best schemes to rig the election. I'm going to come out and say it. I mean, that's, when the dust settles, that's what's going to happen, including the spectacle of January 6th, which was clearly deliberately exacerbated by Nancy Pelosi and others. It was a big scheme. So, the Dems have put themselves in this terrible position, have laid it all out there, including putting forward not one but two failed candidates in 3 cycles. And I'm calling Biden, even in 2020, a failed candidate, because if it hadn't been for all the monkey business, I'm convinced there's no way he would have won. So here we are. And now they've lost, plain and simple, a bloodbath of an election, right? If we're talking strictly in political terms, looking across the board, and maybe slightly metaphorically, given that Republicans are red, Democrats are blue, on election night, we're all sitting there in our living rooms, and we're looking at the tears on CNN or wherever it was, and we're looking up at the screen, and we're seeing how the red wave is going across the country. 6 out of 6 swing states, for example, a resounding victory in the popular vote. And so now the Democrats are sitting here going, okay, what have we got left? And all they've got left are sending out the street thugs. We are currently in the street thug moment on the timeline. And is it, the question I have always, is it, I don't know, is it resonating with people? And the answer is, I'm not entirely so sure that it does. On Sunday, Don Lemon, formerly of CNN, interviewed a man in New York City. This guy is an African-American guy getting interviewed, and the interview it was about ICE, and I think it went off into a completely different direction than Don Lemon intended.
How do you feel about the ICE raids?
The who?
ICE raids, like immigration.
I feel good about them.
Yeah, you want them to crack down?
More, yes.
You do?
Yes, been wanting it for years, all my life.
And what about them, like, roughing people up?
Nah, that's crazy. Don't put your hands on nobody. That's crazy. Don't hurt nobody. Do it the legal way.
But that's what they're doing, though.
That's ugly. Then no, I don't feel great about that. I mean, don't hurt nobody. At the same time, get them out of here. Get them all out of here. Please and thank you. Trump 4 more years for that.
Did you
just for that?
He actually reaches over and gives Don Lemon a fist bump. Don doesn't want to leave the guy hanging. So he's got the microphone, kind of gives him a half-hearted, some knuckles. Okay, man, some knucks. But and then Don Lemon tries to lead him. Well, what about the roughing people up and everything? We always get these videos of these alleged, of this alleged thuggery. Meaning some ICE agent somewhere engaged in gratuitous violence, unnecessary violence to subdue a subject or somebody interfering with an ICE action. And then every time I go, and I will see the video, I'll see the short video, and I'll say, oh, that doesn't look good, because I'm fair and I'm objective and I know things are going to get out of hand. There's no question about it. So I go and I look at it, and the short video is like, oh, yeah, that doesn't look good. And then I go and find the source video that's longer. And there almost always is a longer video that they've trimmed down deceptively to present their point. They don't see the punch that came before. So it's almost, to me, again, I think Don Lemon, him goading with this, well, what about the acts of violence? That's exactly what the left is doing. They're using their little pawns out there to be violent, to antagonize the cops, to interfere, to physically. I mean, people are ramming cars and shooting at ICE officers, okay? This is going on. And then the minute that somebody is there on a camera getting arrested, that's what they're waiting for. They're waiting for this because in every way, shape, and form, politically speaking, the left has lost on this issue. They have failed, and we can say that objectively because elections have consequences. So what's left? Like I said before, street thuggery. That's what we've got. And stupid political grandstanding on this. Like, for example, here we have the mayor of Chicago announcing the ICE-free zones. Mentioned these a minute ago. This is crazy stuff.
Confirm the reports that Chicago police were ordered to stand down when ICE agents were surrounded and rammed by cars. And do you want Chicago police not to help ICE agents?
Our police officers respond to every single emergency in this city. The brave women and men who sign up to serve and protect this city are committed to keeping us safe. And what we have made very clear is through our welcoming city ordinance, when it comes to civil immigration enforcement, absent a warrant, our police department will not dub as federal ICE agents. In fact, we believe it's antithetical to driving violence down in the city of Chicago. When people call 911, we do not ask what their immigration status is, right? And so our police department will respond to every incident in which their services are needed to keep people safe, protecting the fundamental right to be able to protest, ensuring the maximum safety of our residents. That is the top priority of our administration.
It's not the top priority because illegal immigrants commit violence. We have many, many, many dangerous criminal aliens who are being systematically removed by ICE, and this guy's making their jobs worse. I have to take a quick break here. Guys, it's always these profit timeouts to get in the way of our flow, Robbie. But nonetheless, back in a moment, back in a jiff. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT, the What's Right show, is brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. Sam Mirejovsky here at What's Right Sam on X. You can also email me, sam@what'srightshow.com. A word from Sam and Ash Injury Law, just really fast. I keep talking about this. You know, accidents happen. Obviously, people get hurt out there. Hope it never happens to you. But if it does, you want to make sure you've got the right team on your side. You don't want to go at it alone. All right? The worst part about it is when something like this happens, all of a sudden there's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of voicemails, phone calls, just stuff starts to pile up. And the other side, you know, the insurance company they start trying to put themselves in a safe position. They try to circle their wagons and protect their interests. And that's okay. That's fine. But you just have to know it happens. Even if it's your own insurance company, they will fight to protect themselves. Just 15 easy minutes on the phone. That's all it takes. And you can have Sam and Ash Injury Law on your side. Out with the adjuster, out with the insurance company. Now you've got most trusted name in personal injury. Start working on your case immediately. The same day. Turn everything over to Sam and Ash. They handle everything on your behalf. It's that easy. A call with Sam and Ash can be shorter, in fact, than the time you spend on hold with the adjuster in any given week. So it just makes sense. Common sense, which is what we here on the What's Right show are all about. Hire your injury lawyers today. Don't wait. It doesn't get better with time. Just take the time now and tell them that I sent you, Sam, from Sam and Ash Injury Law, for Sam and Ash Injury Law, and from the What's Right show. All right, friends, real fast here. Let's see. I have to play this. This is just wild stuff now, with Chicago going back and forth, refusing to help immigration cops that are actually being attacked violently. It's wild stuff. So here's an example of it. There was one of the incidents happened in a community that's sort of on the western side, just to the west of Chicago. There's a lot of suburbs around Chicago. I'm from one of them, actually, of all things, Evanston. And so there's one on the far side there, on just to the west. It's called Broadview. And the chief there was interviewed on CBS News on Friday. His name is Thomas Mills. And he's actually been caught talking about some fencing that ICE put up to protect their facility. And the police, the local cops, want to tear down the fencing. They want to literally tear down the protective fencing. It's wild.
I know my job. I'm doing my job.
Broadview Police Chief Thomas Mills says ICE agents are breaking the law every day this fence is here, blocking the village street in front of this detention center.
We are experiencing an immediate public safety crisis.
A wall of metal built secretly overnight a week and a half ago without a permit or permission from emergency responders, who might have to get to people or businesses on the other side of this now locked fence. But it's not just a public safety issue, it is also a symbol of the divide between the tiny village and the federal government.
Are you guys ready to just break that fence down if you have to?
We are. Well, we have been in contact with Public Works. They are equipped with heavy equipment to get that fence down.
Do you remember during the Biden administration when Biden flung the border wide open? Okay, and the state of Texas went in to build its own barricades. It was a floating, basically, it's a style of a floating fence with some concertina wire on it anyway, in the Rio Grande River. And the Biden administration went to court and won on the idea that immigration enforcement is a federal, and exclusively a federal issue. That the feds have the mandate and the responsibility to exclusively protect the border and to enforce immigration matters. Okay. So here we have the Trump administration now trying to do this. And they are getting, they're building barricades to protect their facilities because, of course, these facilities are getting attacked by lunatics. We had a big shooting a week and a half ago where ICE agents were targeted, where detainees died. So there's a problem. But now the feds aren't allowed to enforce immigration matters. What a difference of just a couple years this makes in the Democrats' approach. They have to pick a side and stick with it. You know what I'm saying? Fascinating stuff. All right, folks, another hour of the What's Right show up next. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. The What's Right show brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. Kristi Noem, DHS Secretary, making waves with an announcement. You'd think it would be something big. No, it's just that she's going to the Super Bowl. Ha! Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. It's causing a bit of a kerfuffle. Why? Because the announcement comes on the heels of the word that Bad Bunny, the Latin music sensation. I wouldn't recognize one of his songs if it was played right now, but nonetheless, he was announced as the Super Bowl halftime performer. And he on SNL on Saturday announced, what did he say? He said, did some, what? First was, he did the host, a little opening monologue, and then he broke into Spanish. And in the Spanish portion of it, basically told America that we needed to learn Spanish in order to better appreciate and understand the contribution of Hispanics to this country. Well, this was funny. Here on the What's Right show, we celebrate common sense conservatism. So one of the things that immediately came to my mind is that I believe the entire Hispanic, the Southern Hispanic, Western Hemisphere speaking world speak Spanish because they were colonized by Spain. The Spanish Europeans came, eradicated their local cultures and languages, and replaced it with Spanish. And now I guess you and I are supposed to learn Spanish so we can better appreciate the cultural diversity and enrichment that our friends in the south of the border give us. Well, it's just kind of a funny thing. Anyway, that is one aside. So I guess Noem is going to think, because some liberals feel there's going to be a crackdown, an immigration crackdown at the Super Bowl. And Whoopi Goldberg entered the chat earlier today on her show, on The View. Her and Joy Behar talking about this announcement by Noem. And Whoopi Goldberg had an idea. Now, don't hold your breath. It wasn't that brilliant, but it was funny.
She's threatening to go to the Super Bowl when Bad Bunny is there and round up all these people that are illegal immigrants. Do you think that she would go if it was Garth Brooks or Eminem or Taylor Swift or any other white person?
Let me understand what you're saying, because she's going to go to the Super Bowl and round up. How's she going to know who's who?
Because the Supreme Court has given permission to question anyone who has a Spanish accent or has a dark skin.
Yeah. So here's
That's why.
Here's the thing. Everybody, get a little cocoa butter, sit in the sun. That's the first thing. and this is the only time you can probably ever do this, give yourself a Latin accent.
You know, Whoopi, that is such a good idea.
And see if she can tell who's who.
What? Did she just tell us to put on blackface and go to the Super Bowl? No, this isn't AI. It's 100% real. It happened hours ago on The View. So, yeah, put on a little color butter Just put on a little, shoe polish. Go in there, basically dress yourself as a minstrel. And, and by the way, and then she goes, oh, and this is like the part that you're not allowed to do is actually speak with a Hispanic accent. The Democrats are not a serious political movement. I know that The View is a daytime chat show. I understand that. But these are women that regularly interview presidents, political candidates, right? They interject themselves into whatever political zeitgeist. They talk about politics. So you can't just dismiss this and say, oh, it's not really representative of leftism or the Democratic Party writ large. They're all Democrats. They all shill for Democrats. They all supported Kamala Harris, Joe Biden. So of course, you have to take it for what it is. They speak for Democrats. This is deeply unserious stuff. What you think, Rob? You think she was kidding? I actually don't think she was kidding. The same way that I know, and this is obviously a different level of thing, but I know that Jay Jones wasn't kidding either. This story, just absolutely horrific. Jay Jones is the AG nominee. He's running as a Democrat to become Attorney General. He is a politician. He's been, I think, in the state legislature for a period of time. I wasn't following this race really at all before news came out that back in 2022, apparently a Republican state legislator received texts early morning from a former colleague, Jay Jones. Jones had recently resigned from his work there in the State House and apparently had strong feelings about how the political class was eulogizing a recently deceased former state legislator, Joe Johnson Jr., a moderate Democrat, long tenure in Virginia politics. So Jones got into this thing here with this colleague of his, and here's here's the text. I want to go to the primary source of this. They say nice things about everyone. This is Jay Jones, and the person he's texting goes, yeah, that's what the colleague said. And then Jay Jones goes, if those guys die before me, I will go to their funerals to piss on their graves. So that took a turn. The person responded, Jay Jones, like Sam Mirejovsky, right? Stop it. 3 people, 2 bullets, Gilbert, Hitler, and Pol Pot. Gilbert gets 2 bullets to the head. Spoiler, put Gilbert in the crew with the 2 worst people you know, and he receives both bullets every time. Now, at this point, Delegate Carrie Coyner, she's the one receiving these tests, goes, please stop. It really just bothers me. And it actually got worse from there. I've told you this before. Only when people feel pain personally do they move on policy. Then goes on to fantasize basically about saying, I wish his kids get shot. I'm just reading. It's absolutely crazy stuff. Now, my takeaway is it's one thing to have an isolated incident of some person somewhere saying or doing something horrible. Even in a moment of unspeakable tragedy, violence, and targeted political hatred like we saw with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, what was the thing that actually really made us the next day and the day after, as we were dealing with our grief, what enraged us even more? On top of Charlie Kirk's murder, we had people celebrating it. And one of the things I said, this is much more rampant than we realize. We have people among us who truly, just because we're conservative and because we support Trump, we voted for Trump, we are MAGA, there are people that genuinely want to do us harm. And my takeaway here in this Jay Jones debacle is precious few Democrats, liberals have come forward denouncing this. In fact, many have doubled down on this. I was just looking at this moments before we went on air. Eugene Vindman, who is a member of Congress who sits in the seat that's vacated by the gal who is running for governor there, Abigail Spanberger, who basically is a running mate of sorts with this Jay Jones guy. Vindman just doubled down on it. He wrote, "We're a month away from Election Day in Virginia. It's time for our Commonwealth to send a message that we're tired of Republican chaos. Virginia, make a plan to vote early if you can." Spanberger, Senator Hashmi, Jones, Jay specifically listed, continues to have his endorsement. I don't know if one of our own was caught out wishing the violent deaths of his opponents, a Democrat's children. Do you know what kind of outrage would be on our side? It really gives you pause. The real story here isn't what Jay Jones wrote, and it was despicable. The real story is that he isn't being widely condemned by Democrats. They're going to hang on to him. He gets a pass. And the reason is that 85%, maybe 90% of them all talk like this behind closed doors. You give these people any amount of real power, they're going to start acting out on this because they already are out of power. Imagine what happens if they actually wield real political power. Frightening. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT.
The Sam and Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone at What's Right Sam on X, formerly known as Twitter, Sam at whatsrightshow.com. One thing here, a development in Chicago, is actually the police chief there had to come out today and do an about face. He basically came out, he goes, look, we are going to respond to all acts of force against ICE, against any federal agents. And this is after it was caught on radio, that there was radio traffic confirming that local police were told to clear out and leave federal agents, ICE agents, to the fate of armed insurrectionists posing as protesters, boxing in their vehicles. Actually, one woman with a firearm, gunfire exchanged with federal agents. I mean, this is serious stuff. They're not even hiding. They're not hiding the fact that the police were told to stand down. Again, this is from Saturday.
Send the cars in that direction. Have them stay put 2 or 3 blocks away, all right? Have them hold tight until I give you further direction, please.
For the units responding to 39th and Place in Kedzie, if you guys can start heading there as quick as you can, and then just hold tight for instructions with 999.
999.
999.
So the chief of patrol, clear everybody up. We're not responding over there.
Radio check. And again, per the chief of patrol, we have all the units that per 999, Chief of Patrol said all units clear out from there. We're not
Clear
sending
out.
anybody over to that location.
62, we're going to clear out as soon as we can, Spot. We're like locked in over here, so we're going to do the best we can to get out of here as soon as we can.
Group of agents was conducting a routine patrol on the south side of Chicago. They were attacked and rammed in by vehicles, 10 cars in total. And once they were trapped, a woman later found to be armed with a gun attempted to run the officers down and was shot at and was struck by bullets and taken off to the hospital. The chief of patrol that they referenced in that audio, John Hine, ordered these city officers to leave the area. And you can hear it there. It's on tape. This is a scandal of epic proportion. And this is what Miller was getting into. I love this. This was just moments ago, right as we were going on air. Here's an exchange with CNN and Deputy Chief of Staff Miller about this very thing, about the violence and need to protect ICE officers.
If a Democratic president someday calls the National Guard to a red state over what they see as open rebellion, but is what amounts to a demonstration that gets rowdy, I mean, is that not a fear?
They're posting pictures of their kids because it's a demonstration, and they have a sniper on top of a building firing a high-caliber rifle at a nice facility because it's a demonstration, and they are engaged in a vehicle ramming
But the
attacks,
National Guard isn't
ramming
being sent to
attacks
Texas.
because it's a
The National Guard
demonstration.
isn't being sent to Dallas, where that sniper was.
Because the Dallas Police Department and the governor of Texas, well, you walked right into that one, have responded to every call for assistance and help. They gave a stand-down order in Chicago, and they gave a stand-down order in Portland. Do you realize that there's 11,000 federal law enforcement officers in Oregon? That's larger than the size of the FBI. Local and state police are resourced to deal with this kind of riotous assembly, but they have refused. They've been given a stand-down order.
Exactly. He's like, well, you're not sending the extra police and National Guard into Texas. And he's like, yeah, because Texas is backing up our agents. Meanwhile, in places like Portland and Chicago, local police are specifically told to stand down. And in Chicago, where agents were recently attacked and then built a wall to protect their facility, the police there want to take it down, want to rip down their defenses. Why do you think that is? I think the only logical conclusion you can draw is that there's a deliberate effort by Democrats in local government and, frankly, in state government when it comes to Illinois and Oregon, if we're talking about the Portland stuff, that want to see ICE back down. Again, these are people that lost the federal election. They did not, they all campaigned, right? Pritzker and everybody campaigned for Kamala Harris, campaigned for Joe Biden. Their candidates lost. So now what? Democracy did its thing, but in every conversation they have with the media, every appearance, every speech they give, it's all about preserving democracy. And we're going to preserve democracy by going against the will of the people and slow down, if not completely stymie, the efforts of our duly elected president to do the one thing that he was sent to do, which is enforce our nation's immigration laws. We've had enough. Young, old, rich, poor, black, white, and everything in between, even Democrats and centrists, have had enough of Joe Biden's open border policies. Trump won in 2024 because he said, I'm going to take care of this. We all knew Tom Homan. Tom Homan was on the campaign trail. I had somebody the other day tell me, but Sam, this is really a lot more than we expected. I go, where were you in the last 2 years? What the hell are you talking about? I remember Tom Homan showing up at rallies, getting up there and going, yep, this is what we're going to do. And he even gave interviews, for Pete's sake. He sat down with CNN at one point and said, yep, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go after criminal aliens. Well, Well, they asked, well, are any, non-criminal aliens going to get caught up in this? Oh, it could happen. You know how Tom Homan talks. Yeah, it could happen on me. Yeah, it could happen. They ran on it, is my point. They declared openly what it was going to be, and the American public said, yes, yes, 2 thumbs up, voting for Trump. They didn't go for Joe Biden. Joe Biden ran his border czar, and she lost. Okay? This was a defining issue, and so what we see here is the opposition in throes of defeat, acting extrajudiciously, extra politically, basically outside of the norms of court or politics, and trying to stop the democratic agenda, the will of the American people. Unacceptable. I know I haven't even talked about the shutdown today. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the program. Basic news is this. And I mentioned this on News Nation when I was on a panel over the weekend. Comedy Central did a skit. They did a whole skit about basically about the shutdowns. The shutdown. And I have to tell you I'm not going to play it here, but it was all making fun of the Dems. The Democrats have become the butt of the joke. And even on Comedy Central, which is not, this is not the Epic Times, folks. This is, mainstream media slop. And typically, kind of a place where they like to poke fun of Republicans. I'm saying it's all pretty straightforward. Meanwhile, Mike Johnson doing the heavy lifts, explaining constantly that it is about the illegals getting the money. So again, out there in the real world where ICE is fighting block by block to remove criminal aliens, where the Democrats are resisting it, at the same time, Democrats in Congress are pushing to reward these people with more free stuff. It's really where the shutdown and all this ICE violence and left-wing violence, this is where the two topics converge. So here's Mike Johnson explaining where the money goes and how this actually works.
Are you suggesting, Mr. Speaker, that ER doctors check people's immigration status before they render emergency care?
No. Again, it's another red herring. What the Democrats are demanding is that illegal aliens that care for them in an emergency room should be reimbursed at a higher rate.
To the hospitals.
To the hospitals than American citizens, young pregnant women. They want to pay more for illegal aliens than U.S. citizens, and we are against that. The reason it's illegal right now for illegal aliens to receive taxpayer-funded benefits is because Republicans wrote it into the law July 4th. Don't take my word for it. Look at page 57, section 2141 of Chuck Schumer's counter-proposal. It's on my website at speaker.gov. Everybody go look. Don't take my word for it. Read their section. They want to reverse those changes.
But there always is a but. Now, and by the way, the Democrats are willing then to allow the Obamacare funding to expire that doesn't go in. So now Americans are picking up the cost for this, which means, healthcare rates are going to go up. And they want you to pay more for insurance after already messing it up in an epic way, so that they can win on behalf, not of you, the American citizen, but Joe Illegal. There's so many levels of effed up. This is so bad. But I still maintain that they're winning, that they're losing the messaging war. Republicans are winning it. So Sunday, Kristen Welker keeps pushing on this in her conversation with Mike Johnson. Again, this is on MSNBC's Meet the Press. Kristen Welker is such a lightweight. Johnson certainly proving a strong match for her. Look.
First of all, a law was put in place during the Reagan administration, which guarantees that anyone who walks into a hospital gets critical care. So are you saying, because basically the implications of what you're implying is that ER doctors should be checking people's immigration. If someone walks into a hospital and they're bleeding out, should an ER doctor not render care to that person?
No, it's another red herring. I'm not implying that at all. Everyone knows when the hospitals seek reimbursement from the federal government, what they did under the Biden administration is they set in place a program that pays the hospitals more for illegal aliens and U.S. citizens. That is outrageous.
All right. Okay, well, I'll play the video. I'm going to do it. You guys, this was on The Daily Show. This is The Daily Show, Ronnie Chang, and this was on Friday. You tell me who's winning. Again, this is just sort of left-wing, center-left slop, in my opinion. So you tell me who's winning the messaging war.
President Trump has been posting AI videos of Hakeem Jeffries in a sombrero. And now, unfortunately, Democrats are hitting back with their own videos.
It's midnight. The Republican shutdown has just begun.
Can you see me? Well, of course you can't, because the Republicans turned the lights off.
Open the door, Mr. Speaker. Open the doors of Congress, Mr. Speaker.
Republicans, hello. Republicans. No Republicans on the train. Hello, Republicans.
Sarah McBride's video.
Have you seen any Republicans? No Republicans
walking through,
here.
and she's looking under a table. The host is putting his head down.
No Republicans here because they all died from secondhand embarrassment. Look, Democrats aren't as good at video content as they are at sending emails, asking for money. So, I don't know, let's try something else.
Yesterday, Democrats posted a Kitty Explains meme blaming the GOP for the shutdown.
Democrat kitties want you to have health care. Republican kitties do not.
Wow, that was also not good, but...
I played the kitty video for you last week. I told you that this wasn't good. I told you. I remember what I said about this. When I saw it first come up on the official Twitter account for the Democrats, I immediately notified Robbie, and I said, gotta save this video and record it, because these fools are going to take this down. They're not leaving this up. They're going to get roasted. They're going to put that kitty back in the bag. Anyway, it stayed up, and now it's fodder for comedians. And again, not conservative comedians, but, people that are, more mainstream. None of this is going well. And one thing that you'll notice is, the argument here, right? They're constantly, and I had whoever the other panelist was with me on News Nation on Saturday it was a Democrat guy, and they billed me, by the way, on the show, Robbie, as a Republican strategist. I have to answer that. I'm not a Republican strategist. I'm an analyst, and I am a Republican. But suddenly, I got a big promotion, so I have to talk to somebody about that. At any rate, the guy that was, the Democrat guy on the panel on Saturday was, well, he was just talking about how the Republicans are going to come back and go into session, and Mike Johnson, and I'm like, Mike Johnson's, they're done. I mean, they voted in the Republicans voted in a clean CR. The Republicans in the House, sometimes you have to explain to people how this stuff works. The Republicans in the House voted for a clean CR. The House of Representatives is done. Now, one of two things happens. Three, I guess. The Senate can come up with its own version and pass it, and it has to go back for reconciliation in the House. Option one. Option two, they vote yay. Option three, they vote nay. But all three involve who? The Senate. Jeez Louise, these people. Oh, we're the House of where's the Republic? Because you got Hakeem Jeffries and Horsford, from Nevada in the stupid video. We're the Republicans, peekaboo, right? And it's, guys, the House voted. You voted your way. Republicans voted their way. It passed. Clean CR went up to the Senate, where Democrats held it up with filibuster and didn't get the votes, and it hasn't advanced. So it's hanging there until I think it's 7 Democrats will come along and break through. That's it. My numbers could be off by 1 or 2. Whatever the point is, this is a handful of Dems need to come across. So it's all on Senate Democrats right now. And the House just needs to be close by in case there's a reconciliation needs to happen. Is my basic understanding of how this stuff works. So just letting you know. Don't let anybody tell you this is all on Schumer. And the Dems could very easily. Here's the exit off ramp for the Dems. They could take a handful of their members who are in more conservative areas and take one for the team and basically vote for the Republicans' proposal and still save face for the Democratic caucus. But anyway, I don't know if they have enough takers for that. Because the Democrats right now are terrified. They're looking at Zohran Mamdani. They're looking at AOC. They're looking at the rest of the squad. All of these radical Democratic socialists who are getting a ton of support. And they're worried because the left flank in the Democratic Party wants blood, literally. Just look at Jay Jones. Look at Charlie Kirk. Look at what's happening to ICE agents, et cetera, et cetera. All these stories are connected. Sometimes we think, that there's all this stuff happening that's, all separate and independent, but they all connect and intersect. Quick break. Sam Mirejovsky here, the What's Right show, brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law. Don't go anywhere. More of the program up next. Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here. What's Right show brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law. Trump making some progress on on peace in the Middle East. And one of the things I find so perplexing about this is now that it's almost within reach, and we'll see Hamas, of course, rejecting or wanting to renegotiate some of the elements of the deal, Israel signing onto it. Pressure on Hamas is immense right now, not just from the U.S. and Israel, but from many of the Abraham Accord countries that have previously been supportive of the Gazans. What I find perplexing is how many Democrats are actually disappointed that this deal could happen. I mean, I thought if your top concern is, and you truly believe that a genocide is happening in Gaza, wouldn't you be just ecstatic that it's over? Maybe there's something more at play here. Maybe this is a crisis they hoped would basically last in perpetuity. This reminds me a little bit of the global warming hoax. And I call it the global warming hoax because that's what it was called. Before it was climate change, it was global warming. And we heard about it all the time. We saw the pictures of the lonely polar bears that were, on the iceberg and they were floating, and they looked like they were going to die. And okay. It was springtime, temperatures were getting warmer and ice was melting. Anyway, side note. And then temperatures actually began to drop. So what did the left do? They started calling it climate change, insisting that global warming was happening, no longer tenable, so they rebranded it. I'll be very interesting to see what the rebrand will be here. But there's going to be a rebrand. Trust me. They're going to do something. You got to keep your eyes on this. And the mask went down a little bit on Friday. This is Abby Phillip and author Alencia Johnson. And, Phillip basically said, yeah, if he's able to do this, it's a major, major victory for him. And I was talking about this on Friday. I want to draw your attention back to it because here it is.
And if President Trump is able to do this, this is a major it's a major victory for him.
Look, it is challenging to actually hear that piece of, Trump potentially being the one to get the ceasefire deal. But I think what we are seeing now is that a lot of people are tired of the devastation that's happening to the Palestinian people. And so how do we figure out a path forward? And so I would be interested to understand President Trump's interest in this, because he has said some things that are very harmful to the Palestinian people. I don't know, what his motivations are.
He wants the war to end. I mean, he wants the war. He wants.
That's what he wants.
I don't think the war to end for a lot of reasons. Some of them are personal reasons. He wants that Nobel Peace Prize. Some of them are that I do think that whatever you think of Trump, he does not like the idea of all the death and destruction.
Well, it's unbelievable that Abby Phillip has to be the voice of reason here. I know she's the host, but she's definitely a leftist. Because the Democrats are just openly going, well, I guess Trump might be successful here. Groaning. But I wonder what his motivations are. Can you imagine being so deep down into the hate dungeon that this is how you think? Tomorrow is October 7th. These hostages need to come home. This war can end. Trump put out a deal that is not great for Israel, that Israel has reluctantly accepted. Israel is, in a matter of military strategy, kinetic action, winning this war. Now, because of the mainstream media, because of all these leftists hijacking this cause to become their vanguard for communist revolution, the Palestinians have the upper hand when it comes to PR. But only because their movement, their plight, has been hijacked by the communist left in the West. That's, I think, not disputed. So, what are we left with? Israel's doing the quote-unquote right thing and accepting a proposal that's not entirely palatable, but that gets this thing ended. And the left, I'm telling you right now, mark my words, the left is cheering on Hamas to not take the deal. The left would rather every last woman, child, men, whoever in Gaza be eliminated as slowly as possible, as painfully as possible, on camera if at all possible, so that they can exploit this in their fight against Trump, against Israel, against nationalism of any kind, against Western civilization. This is what they want. Unfortunately, the Gazans have become a pawn. A political pawn. And with the left, I mean, the objective of Israel's been clear: get rid of Hamas. If Hamas had given up and said, all right, we're out of here, we're flying to Qatar, we're on the plane, we're out of here, here's your hostages, we're leaving Gaza, this would have ended a year ago. Well, whenever, it would have ended right then and there. Israel doesn't want a protracted war. Guys, and again, if Israel wanted to do genocide, can I just be honest with you, Robbie? If Israel has the means to turn Gaza in 4 days max into a pile of rubble and hamburger meat, so why haven't they done that if they're genocidal maniacs like the left claims? Instead of risking the lives of their forces, of their soldiers, going door to door, building to building, street to street, tunnel to tunnel, pursuing these militants. The cynics say it's because they've got hostages there. At some point, they could have done a calculus and just done it, and hope to pick out, the survivors from the tunnels. I'm telling you, the left wants this conflict to continue. If you pay careful attention to how they're talking. They keep mentioning, they dance around it, but they mention basically just that. So, we have, just to sum it all up, we have dangerous opponents here, politically speaking, and not just in our country, but around the world. By the way, some encouraging news from the Czech Republic, my parents' homeland. Election over the weekend, Friday and Saturday, elected a center-right government led by Andrej Babiš, who is a former prime minister. He is a billionaire. He's a very successful business guy. Controversial figure, but there's a new party, the Motorists, that are a Trump-like party, anti-EU party, reasonable, pro-business, pro-freedom party. They will have a place in the new government, more than likely. So the government there shifting rightward dramatically, and yet another sign that Western civilization is on the mend. It is incredible that Trump and the Make America Great Again movement, Elon Musk, through the liberation of Twitter, is fostering a resurgence of right-wing conservative parties across the Western world. Europe is in some places healing, certainly in Eastern Europe, joining now the Czech Republic, the ranks of Hungary, and other countries that have taken steps to protect themselves from mass migration and liberal lunacy. So we'll follow this closely. By the way, their election, 70% voter turnout. It took them hours to finish counting the votes.